This is some basic information about spreadsheets and how to use them. There are a number of different kinds of spreadsheets out there. There are lots of software that does this. The most famous of all is Microsoft Excel. This is what Microsoft Excel looks like on a Mac. The current Apple version of that is called Numbers. Numbers looks like this. You can use Google Docs. You can build a spreadsheet for free online using Google Docs, and there are a number of other online spreadsheets. One particularly nice one is called Edit Grid. All of these have each one of these tools has some small way that it distinguishes itself from the other ones and some particular advantages. Each one has some nice things about it. I'm going to use Google Docs because it's free and available to everybody. And every spreadsheet program has a number of things in common. One thing is it has a whole bunch of tools. You see some tools on the top. Everything has there's usually an edit line here that you can put stuff in, an edit line that's often called the formula bar. And the other thing that they all have is they have cells, and these cells live in columns and in rows like that. And every cell can contain certain things. You can put text in a cell. I don't know if I can spell banana. There's only one N in banana. Anyway, you can put numbers in cells. So and the other thing that you can put in cells, and this is the crucial what makes spreadsheets special, is that also in a cell you can put a calculation. And a calculation is going to happen automatically, and the way that you tell a spreadsheet that you're going to put a calculation in there is that you start with an equal sign. If you put an equal sign at the beginning of a cell, the spreadsheet knows that it's actually supposed to figure out what to display there. So we could say, display the value 2 plus, display 2 plus 2. Now that's not very exciting because we could have done that on our own. What's be much more interesting would be 2 plus this box up here, because then I can put whatever box in there and I can get the spreadsheet to calculate 2 plus anything I give it. I mean, that's pretty magical, right? How do I tell it this box here? Well, the way I tell it this box up here is that every cell has an address. Every cell has an address. And let's look at, I'm going to get rid of the cell here. Let's look at this cell up here. And notice, this cell has an address, and its address is A1. The one below it is A2. The one below that is A3. The one to the right is, B1, and so on. Right, so that's B1, B2, B3. So we can always refer to what's in that box by referring to the box. And so to go back to our example here, if I didn't want to say 2 plus 2, I could say 2 plus whatever's in the box above me. So I could type here A4, and now it knows, hey, 2 plus whatever's in the box above me. If I'm too lazy to type A4, I can also just click on that box, and the spreadsheet knows it's A4. If I hit return, holy cow, look, it adds 2 to whatever's in that box. And if I make what's in this box 2, I get 4. I can change it to something else, and it'll add 2 to that. So an equation, and notice the equation also shows up here in the formula bar. And I can put all kinds of things in that equation. I could do the things, like we can do addition. I could do subtraction. This cell minus that cell. Look, it'll subtract them. We can do, this cell times the cell above it. Pretty much anything that you can do on a calculator, you can put in here on the equation. You could take the absolute value of this cell. Well, look at that. You can take this cell and square it, and that works too. One other quick note, spreadsheets have cells. They often also have other structures. For instance, they often have sheets, as if each spreadsheet were made up of a bunch of sheets of paper. I'm going to go back to Excel. If you look down at the bottom of Excel, it says, hey, there's a sheet 1, and that's this sheet. If I hit plus, it's going to create another sheet. That's like another piece of paper stacked on top of it, right? And I could call this the, the magic sheet or whatever. If it has some, if you want to talk about it in some way, you can give it a title. The same thing is true here in Google Docs. This says sheet 1, and I could rename this sheet demonstration. And I can create a new sheet. Oh, I could do that with a plus sign here. I could say, rename this. So now I've got two sheets, demonstration sheet, another sheet. One other useful thing is filling. So that if, let's say I wanted this all to be bananas, right? I could say copy, and I can go over here and say paste. And we're all familiar with how to do that. Often in spreadsheets, you want to fill something. And like let's say I want this all to say banana. There's a little handle here. I get a hold of the handle and I drag it to the right. And now it'll say banana there. If I have these two selected and I drag the handle and I pull down, it's going to fill both spaces below with banana. I could do that with the 17 also. Oops, meant to drag that to the right. Now they're both 17. It's not very interesting if it's the same thing, but it is very interesting if what we have is a formula. Let's clear this stuff. So let's 14 to 5. Let's say right here I'm going to add 2 to the thing to the left. 2 to A1. If I fill this down, boom, boom, notice I'm always adding 2 to the thing to the left. This brings us to something that's really important, because notice that right here, hey, click out, click back in. If I double click on it, it shows the it shows the formula. This says 2 plus A1. Now I copied it and pasted it here. Does this say 2 plus A1? No, it doesn't. It says 2 plus A2. Hey, I was trying to just copy and paste. It should be the same, but it's not the same. And in fact, this is really smart, because spreadsheets know that typically when you're copying a formula to someplace else, you're not trying to replace the formula exactly. You're trying to sort of do the same thing. And in this case, the doing the same thing is adding 2 to the cell that is directly to the left. It's not so much A1 itself, it's just that that's the cell directly to the left. This brings us to a subtle and important question about the types of address. This is called a relative address. A1 is a relative address, and it means when I write A1, I mean the cell A1, but I also mean that if you copy this to somewhere else, don't write A1, write the cell that's directly to the left. If I write A1 over here, 2 to the right, I mean A1, but I also mean the cell that is 2 to the left, right? If I say equals, A1, that refers to the cell 2 to the left. If I fill this to the right, it'll change this to be, the cell that is 2 to the left. So relative addresses, they look like a reference to an exact cell, but if you copy them, they will copy in a relative way. They won't say A1, it'll be 2 to the left. Sometimes that is undesirable. Let me show you an example. I'm going to insert some rows here to give us some space. Let's say I have some special number. And So my special number is, I don't know, 3. And what I want here, I don't want to add 2 to this number. I always want to add the special number. So if I say, I'm going to say, okay, I want to take the thing to the left, and I want to add my special number. Now if I copy this down, if I fill this down, notice this is 2 plus, it says 2 plus 2, but that's because it also, it didn't copy 3. Like, when originally I said B1, that was the cell 2 above this cell. Once I've copied it down, it does the cell 2 above this cell. I don't want that. I always want to be talking about B1. So let's go back to my original thing. If I want to say I want to say B1, but I want to make sure it's always B1, I make this what's called an absolute address. And an absolute address is done with dollar signs. I'm going to go $B, $1. If I copy this down, if I fill this down, it will now always be referring to B1. Notice that the row has changed, but this address, B1, has not changed. Likewise here. So now what I've done is I've created something that always adds my special number to the number on the left, right? If I make this 1, now we're always adding 1 to that column. Absolute addresses, if you want to be really subtle about them, you can also do this tricky thing where you can say, I only want the column to be absolute. That would be $B1. So that means if you copy this up and down, the row sign will change, but the column sign will never change. And if you copy it left and right, the column sign won't change, but the row sign will change. So, you can be fancy with it if you find a use for that. Okay, so that's it. Spreadsheets, cells, calculations, and absolute versus relative addressing.